So if you're listening to the show, you might know that I have been going through shit lately. And this really made me think that I would love to offer my group program, the Urban Cleanse group program. But this time I am part of the group. I would like to go back to losing the weight that I gained these past couple of years. And I would like to feel better in my own skin. And I know a lot of you do too. And I do know that my program does work if I only did it myself. So if you'd like to join, please go on www.organilicious.ch, click on the Urban Cleanse button and join us. It'll be loads of fun. We'll do it together. I will be your support, your knowledge, as well as your team member. I'm looking forward to see you there. Thanks a lot.
So, hey, Donna.
Hey, how's it going, Megan?
I'm so excited.
Oh, no, it's been forever.
I know. Our last episode was months ago, and that's because holidays and life.
Oh, yes, holidays and life.
Holidays and life. But we're back. We're together again. The dynamic duo, the bosom buddies.
Bosom, I like that one.
Maybe my bosom's a little more than yours. So today, I think we should address the gap. So we did take some time off because, and part of that time off, we're going to talk a little bit about in the episode today with you, and why you needed some time off. I also will explain, I was working on my company, so I needed a little time off to focus 100% on that. And now that that's up and running, we can get back to it. And we've decided to, because we adore this form, this media, and each other, that we want to keep doing it, but we needed to revise. So we've decided to just do lives for the moment so that we don't have to do any editing. Can I get a round of applause? Yay! So the editing was really dragging us down as two ADHD people with busy lives. So we've decided we will continue to do the episodes. We're going to really try to do every other week live, and then we will get them out immediately into the podcast format. So please, make sure that you're on our mailing list or somehow connected with us to make sure you're getting the notification of when we're going live. But typically it'll probably be on Fridays around this time. So,
yep. Awesome. I'm excited. Thanks for that intro, Megan. I could sip my coffee and relax while you do this.
All right. So, we're already happy because we've been on the phone for 15 minutes chatting with each other. But maybe the topic that we're talking about today is depression. And when we decided on this topic a couple weeks ago, Donna was like, I said, I need a title for the graphics. And immediately you said, The Ugly Beast Within. Please tell me, where the hell did that come from? It just popped out of your mouth like a demon from hell.
I know. Well, that's another really good, description of of depression. I don't know. It just came to me because that's how it feels. It feels like it's something within you, and it feels like an ugly, ugly beast that you're battling with a lot. And I think that it was so important for me. I think, probably from the moment that we spoke first time, like over a year ago, I was like, depression should be one of the topics. Depression should be one of the topics. And now, so for our listeners to understand, depression has been part of my life, probably my entire life, or at least as far as I can remember. And Megan, not necessarily. So I think, for you, it was also not necessarily something that you wanted to cover, or it didn't resonate with you, right? So you're like, well, great, we're going to listen to Donna talk for an hour again. Fun. But I think, and I think you do understand that by now, if you didn't before, I'm not saying you didn't, but maybe you didn't, is that there are so many people suffering, and I think it's so important to talk about it. Because it is, when you suffer from depression, you feel alone, even if you're surrounded by thousands of friends and family and everyone cares about you and checks up on you and everything. You feel alone. You feel like you're battling something within you and you don't want to drag people down and you don't want to be the party pooper and you don't want to, you just don't want to inflict other people with your sadness or with your depression.
Mhm.
And so that kind of is where, it came from. It just literally came from just probably it speaking from me. But also, I also always talk about it as I have a friend who calls it the black dog, and we sometimes say like that you feel like this like black spiral, like a black tornado kind of like pulling you down. I think every single person has their own experience with it and probably has a nickname for it as well.
Yeah, I have to agree that I don't think I've had chronic depression. I have felt depressed. My experience is I didn't notice it until afterwards. I
Mhm.
didn't understand what was going on. That's probably because I hadn't had that experience most of my life. So when I was in a period of depression, um, which for me was around about 6-7 years ago. So it's been a while. But it was only after like that fog lifted that I look back and go, wow, I think I was actually depressed, but I didn't have the vocabulary. I didn't have it's kind of like if you're in fog and there's this beautiful scenery around you, you have no idea the beautiful scenery is around you until the fog lifts. That's kind of the thing, right? So, but now that I can look back, so I do have a little bit of experience, but definitely not something where it's something that's chronic or comes back again and again. So I think, yeah, we'll definitely, like you said, I think everybody's experiences are slightly different, but I think maybe the first thing we could dive into is like, what were your signs? Like maybe you could describe how you first noticed the signs of depression and what were those signs, and maybe third layer on top of that is, have those signs changed from when you were younger to when you're now older? Maybe you could
Mm.
get in a little bit there.
Yeah, good questions. And you might have to remind me part of those. But the funny thing is that I now know that I suffered from depression way before I actually noticed what it was. So I can tell you that the first time I probably experienced depression was when I must have been, kind of high school, beginning of high school-ish. That was the first experience that I had with it, and it was ongoing. It was a while, but it was only when I realized that I am depressed when I had my firstborn actually, and I had postpartum depression. I think it was probably because by then it was okay, right? In big quotation marks, because you almost kind of expect it. They call it the baby blues, and then if it lasts a bit longer, they have a lot of notes and little signs and signals. But at the end of the day, it was then that I realized, wow, I'm depressed and I really need help. When I was a kid, when I was young, I had it. Then I had it again when I was probably kind of like 18, again when I was 20. So I remember very specific times in my life when I was battling with something, experiencing something, and was depressed. And I was shutting out from, from my surrounding, whether it was family or friends. I was just melancholy, I would my, my sisters would always say, you're listening to slit your wrists music. Was what they called it, which is terrible. But I was just listening to REM on repeat. I was listening to like, Radiohead, and so it was, a lot of that, a lot of self. I wouldn't say self-sabotage per se, but just kind of like thinking I'm just a failure and nothing good is coming out of me, and my life is just terrible. And the funny thing is that, and I think a lot of people who suffer from depression can agree to that, it doesn't reflect on what your life is like, which makes it even harder. So you're looking at your life and you're like, I have the most incredible family, I have the best friends, and we have money, and we have, I have this and I have this and I have that. Why in the world am I depressed? And there's no answer, because there isn't an answer, because it's not something that is, most often it's not something that is external that is making you depressed. It's rather you having depression or being prone to depression, and then there's an overwhelm on you, on your brain, on your body, on your soul, that actually triggers that, I believe.
So could your family tell, like you said, your sisters mentioned like the music you were listening to, but I assume that sometimes people can't tell when someone is depressed, but maybe if they're close enough around you, could they tell that you were depressed at the time?
No, no. When I was younger, definitely not. When I had my kids, I was already verbal about it, and so ish. But what actually happened was, and I think that's when it really dawned on my mom specifically, who has suffered from depression on herself in the past. She might not, she might disagree to it, but she was definitely depressed, a few decades back. What happened was, I was 30 years old. I had two tiny kids running around, and I turned 30, and my family surprised me and showed up in Switzerland, literally knocking on the door. And they came. My sister came in first, and she's like, "Get out of bed. What's going on?" I was like, "Come nap with me." I'm not a napper. I think we talked about that in the sleep episode. I hate naps. And I was like, "Come." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And she saw the house. And she's like, she knows that my mom is just outside the door. Right? So she's like, "Let's clean up before mom comes in." But she didn't say those words because mom is there to surprise me. Long story short, my mom came in and she saw the mess that was my world at that moment. And that's when reality hit her, right? That's when she actually actively stopped saying, like, "Have another kid, where's the girl?" And all the sentences that, parents kind of tell you always when it comes to kids. But also she realized how bad the situation was, and how hard, how I wasn't myself, right? I wasn't like, yay, I was like, kind of like tired and down, and just looking and feeling miserable. And often you see it with me, like when I smile, but only my mouth smiles and my eyes look sad. It's very, very easy to tell with my face, because I can't fake my face. Those who know me understand, because like my eyebrows are like huge and everything is huge. So yeah, I don't know that they could tell. And even if my sisters could tell something was wrong when we were younger, I think they were much younger, they were much younger. So they couldn't really maybe, they either worded it and weren't taken seriously, or couldn't even kind of like word it, basically. Yeah.
So staying on the topic of your family and friends, like during that time when you did allow them to know that, or when they did figure it out, how was the support that you got from friends and family, and how did that affect your experience with depression?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tricky situation, I think, for everyone involved. My family were always, my mom and my mom's side were always kind of living this kind of life of suck it up. Just, you can do better than this, right? You just have to continue living, right? And so that definitely made it harder, because I was like, I'm fucking trying, and it's not that easy, right? So it's not like, okay, just dismiss this, just put it aside for now, because you have kids to take care of, or you have a household to deal with, or work, or whatever it is. So I remember at the time it was very aggravating not to be understood. Friends wise, also, I think with friends, you have different types of people, and some people who battle with depression themselves, deal with it in a different way. And so they kind of inflict that way on you. I lately had a friend, a really dear friend, say to me, I kind of outed myself and said to her, like, I told you I was depressed and you disappeared. You literally disappeared. You didn't even check up on me afterwards. After sitting at dinner at a restaurant and I couldn't stop crying, I couldn't even eat. Right. And so I took my food home afterwards. I was like in a restaurant and couldn't eat. And they didn't contact me at all. One friend still to this day, not sure I can call her a friend anymore, but the other one was like, I just thought that, you're like me and you needed your space. Right. But I think that something really, really important to say, and I keep trying to kind of word it on social media as well, is that you have to continue to check up on these people. You have to continue checking up on someone who tells you that they're depressed or that feels to you like they're depressed, because, for me, I'm not suicidal, but some people are. And the fact that they all of a sudden don't have anyone makes it worse, So I think that that's something really important, to ask someone, to ask, are you suicidal? That's a legitimate question when someone, when you realize that someone is depressed, really important question. But also to just check up. So, I feel like, nowadays with my family, they're more aware of what's, obviously after years and years of me kind of like on and off, they know and they check up, and my mom calls every single day, and, my sisters check up on me, and, and we talk to each other kind of on and off. But I think it's, as difficult for a family member or a friend who has someone who is dealing with depression to know what to do. Because I think most people just want to give you a solution, and there's no solution.
Yeah, they want to fix you.
They want to fix you, and it's like there's a difference between empathy and sympathy, and I don't need anyone's sympathy when I'm feeling so down. There's sympathy. Oh, I was sad at this time, or I was depressed back then, or I did this, or, my friend does that. Not helpful. Maybe do this, maybe do that. I'm like, look, guys, all I need is a hug, a shoulder, like someone to hear me out. It already feels so much better when I manage to bring myself to speak about what's going on. Is already light years away from where I was probably a week or two ago. So to understand that and to just kind of like listen and to be there for the person, I think is so important, and it's so difficult for people to be empathetic. So
for you, to be specific, so when you're in a state of depression, and probably people can tell a little bit, because at least for me, I withdraw from people, which is not normal because I'm usually a very social butterfly. But for you, I'm asking you, if you're in a state of depression, what do you want people to say or do for you while you're in that state?
Just say, hey, how's it going? That's already enough. And I think but to keep checking up.
But hey, how's it going? Does that not...
How are you doing? Any question, any question that is like, I care about you. Are you okay? Even just, are you okay? I think that's a really, again, it's, I think for some people, it's just kind of like scary or difficult to know how to approach a person, right?
Right. And that's why I'm asking, because as a person who I have friends that have been depressed, and I know that. And like you said, if you are a person who has not experienced that, or not experienced it in such a chronic way that you, that it's like, oh, that's what this is, it doesn't come to your mind, then like you said, for me as a person who's on the receiving end, who would like to check up on that person, none of us have degrees in psychology, or like very few of us do. So it's more like, yeah, what do I do? Do I, like right now I have a friend who's going through burnout, which is not depression, but it can be linked. Like you can have these two things at the same time, but it's not necessarily tied together. But it's like, what do I do? even if I offer, do I go over and just knock on her door and just say, hey, I'm just here to hang out with you? Or do I just every day like text her and say like, hey, how are you doing today? So is that the type of support that you would need?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the only way I can explain it, I guess, is the way that because I know that what I do, I'm, it's almost impossible for me to ask for help. I'm just that kind of person. I'm like, let me do this, right? I need to do things, whether it's my family, whether it's friends. I had a friend a few years back who called me one day, and she just had to say the word depression, right? She just she was like, I'm really struggling. I'm depressed. I literally at that moment canceled all of my calls, all of my meetings and everything. I went to the supermarket. I went and bought ingredients. I came to her home. I cooked for her while I was listening to, for her and her family, while I was listening to her talk. And then she ended up coming here for lunch, and I ended up being with her the entire day, which was very difficult for me because, I'm an empath, so I'm taking it all in like, like punches in the stomach. But at the same time, I think that like, just knowing that someone is there for you, just knowing that someone thinks about you, cares about you, is there for you without judgment, without trying to fix you, as we said, I think that's already super helpful. When I post about my depression, I often get a lot of people like writing me, texting me privately, going like, I also suffer from depression, or I'm going through this and that. And I actually check up on them afterwards. Like I don't know them. I've never met them, but like just the other day, I think it was yesterday, I contacted someone who mentioned that she was, suffering from postpartum depression. And I wanted to check up on her, and I texted her a few days ago. Then I texted again yesterday. I was like, I'm kind of worried. Like, is everything okay? And her reply was like, one of many words was like, it's funny how people who you hardly even know will check up on you while your friends don't.
Well, because you have nothing to lose. This is a stranger. It's the same thing as telling someone your whole medical history that you're never going to see again. It's like, I feel it's like that same, I don't know, as an American, you tell people things, and like you're over here in Europe, they're like, I would never tell that to anybody. But you know what I mean? Like there's like this like openness that you have with strangers. And that's why a lot of, some people find going to therapy is even easier than telling your family about something, because your family has all the history behind this. You have the fear of them judging you, and you have less fear of a stranger judging you because they're not part of your life, or they're not an integral part of your life. So I can totally see how, people can put their trust or be more open with someone they don't know. I think that's like the suicide hotlines, right? I mean, people call, they don't know who those people are. They just talk, right? And I think that that's one of the reasons it works so well, is because it's so anonymous, and you can feel like you can tell them anything. And
it's true.
Is that why Catholic confessionals are like, I know you're not Catholic, but I have a
I've seen plenty of movies. Yeah.
But I feel like that's why the confessionals are blocked, so that you can just talk into a void and know somebody's listening to you, but not have to look at them in the eyes when you're doing it. But I think
but the thing is that when you look at statistics, you'll see that, and now we're talking about statistics, so we're talking about people who actually do take their lives. You'll see that there were signals. Social media nowadays, easiest way to check, right? So nowadays it's easy, but even with people, loved ones who knew that they were suffering, or, notes or things or poems that they wrote, I think there's always, I think as someone who is depressed, we're always kind of like we feel like we're yelling for help. Even if we're not saying a lot, even if we're just like, look, I can't do this today. I'm not in the headspace. I'm overwhelmed. Like it's too much going on, like little things. But I feel like what we feel is that we're screaming for help. We're like, I am drowning. Can someone please either lightning, please strike me now, take away the pain, or can someone please help me? And we're going to do that without overwhelming people, because we know, like we know that if we say it to someone who didn't necessarily experience it or doesn't necessarily know what to do, we'll either get really annoyed at their answer, right? Or they'll disappear.
Mm-hmm.
They'll disappear. And a lot of people disappear. And that's just the most heartbreaking part is like, it's not contagious. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that I can give you. It's not, I'm just kind of like clinging on to something in the hope that it will help me to come out and take a fresh breath of air while I feel like I'm drowning. That's where it's so important, as a person who's suffering from depression, to speak and to even speak louder. So not necessarily louder in volume, but louder in like, say you're depressed, say you're struggling. Don't just kind of try to put little nuances in your sentence, but really just say it. And for others to really notice, me, right? I mean, you've been there this whole time for me, but like, me and you know that I'm like this bubbly, like talkative, like I'll leave you 2-hour voice messages on WhatsApp, like all the time. And then all of a sudden I flatline, you know? And so it's easy with a person like me, it's easy to tell. All of a sudden I'm not posting on social media.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden you don't hear from me at all, no stories on Instagram, nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can really tell like, okay, wow, something's happening there. She's either super busy with work, which should make her very happy, or she's suffering and she's not happy whatsoever.
I think that's a good point you brought up, because we're both extroverts, and it's because as an extrovert, you tend to put yourself out in the world a little bit more, because we get energy by engaging with people, whether it's virtual or in real life. But I think that it's a bit more of a struggle to clearly see for people who are introverts, or people who don't have a larger social circle, or they don't put themselves out publicly, whether that's, like I said, in person or virtual, to see that change in behavior, right? So if they're not normally doing those things, then it can also be more difficult for friends and family to see that, and vice versa. I think that a person could really mask for a long time by not changing those behaviors, but still be very depressed, I'm assuming. You know what I mean? Like, as a coping mechanism, maybe they even post more, but like somehow, for me, I was trying to think, like, because we talked about like signs of depression, and I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that only afterwards that I could see that I was depressed. And what I could tell is that withdrawnness. I was always or I am a person who likes to be involved in a lot of things. I like to do a lot of leadership roles, and I care a lot about a lot of things. And what I noticed during this time, 2016, 2017, was that I really just stopped caring. I withdrew from extra things at work. Like I would be involved in extra stuff at work. There's always extra stuff to do at work, like that's the fun stuff, like planning a Christmas party, or doing, you know what I mean? Those types of things that I just really enjoy doing. And I just found that was the way that I look back and go, oh, I just really stopped caring to see people. And, I didn't go out as much, and I didn't make an effort with friends. And I think that that's really colored a lot of things, but it also led me to the health coaching, right? Because it was at the end of 2017 when I'm just like, I've got to change something, because this has gone on long enough. And, and the other sign that I could tell something was wrong was the physical sign of my blood pressure, and getting angry much more easily. Like, I am not a person that gets angry, or if I do, it's gone like that. I don't hold on to things. And oh man, so these three things, like withdrawing, and then instant anger that lasted. And those were my signs. And so it's, I'm glad, and this is like we've talked about in all of our episodes, knowing yourself better, understanding that, because now I can see if I've experienced a brief period of depression now, I know, okay, I know what this is. I'm withdrawing, and I can kind of go, okay, why am I doing this? Okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed and this is turning inward and now I'm beating myself up about this. And maybe it's not like I would call clinical depression where I would need some kind of therapy, but it's definitely something where I'm in my head and my head is making it worse for myself.
Yeah.
But I'm curious on what types of treatments or therapies that you've experienced throughout your life. Would you feel comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've gone through different ones. I mean, when I was younger, probably until I gave birth, I didn't go and search for help at all. When I was a teen, I was told I was a typical teen, right? Pushing everyone away and not communicating and closing myself in the room. Um, so REM was my was my um, therapy there, I guess. But when I was older, when I first had my first born, I went immediately the medication route. Um, just because I kind of discovered it when I was in the States, they kind of prescribed something, and then I quickly realized I was pregnant again. Stupid move, was not planned. And then I had to stop. Right, so I was on antidepressants for like couple weeks, I don't know, maybe a month, and then stopped. And then when I then gave birth to my second born, the depression was deep. It was terrible. It was to a point where I mean, the only way I can explain it, and I think my husband and I will remember this day forever. My husband walking into the house, finding all three of us crying, right? A baby, a toddler, not even toddler, and mommy. The baby was crying because it was tired and wanted to go to sleep. The toddler was crying because he spilled chocolate milk all over himself. And he's like, Mommy, clean me up. I'm cold. I'm wet. And mommy was crying because she didn't know what the fuck to do. Because I was so like, you're just in this fog, as you said, you're just in this like black hole. And you're like, everyone's crying around me. I'm just going to cry with them. And my husband was like, "Why didn't you put the baby down and change this guy quickly, and then tend to the baby?" And I was like, my brain did not function. Like it does not function. At some point, you're like,
Yeah.
And so it was really, really difficult. So then I actually started going to therapy and ended up on antidepressants again, but that was literally, I was fighting it. I was like, I don't want to be on antidepressants. I don't want to be on antidepressants. And that guy was just kind of like a drug pusher, and he finally got me on antidepressants, and it just made me numb. It didn't make me necessarily feel much better.
Mm-hmm.
The thing was, at that time, that's actually when I realized that, of course, my health, my lifestyle, my eating habits, I'm not saying you can cure depression with a carrot, but I'm saying you can help yourself. So, what I noticed, and what I notice until today, is that, of course, there's the easy, there's this place where, emotional eating, right? You're depressed, you're miserable, and you're like, I cannot be bothered to give myself the self-love that I deserve, first of all. Second of all, who has the energy to stand there now and make a fresh meal? So I'm just going to eat popcorn, and I'm just going to eat potato chips, and I'm just going to eat frozen pizza, and I'm just going to, so you get into that spiral, which makes things worse. So now you're even more depressed because every cell of your body is just malnourished and needs something. And also that food is just, all the garbage that's in there is not actually contributing to your well-being, not mental and not anything. So I definitely noticed that when I get into the spiral, and I will live on potato chips for some weeks sometimes. And then I realize it, and I try to catch myself and kind of go like, all right, well, how do I help myself now? And that's one of the things that definitely is helpful for me is, again, if it's just to show myself that I love myself enough, respect myself enough to go and make myself a small meal or just make the better choice. That's already a big one. But I was on medication for a while, on and off. I was on sleeping pills. I was on like everything, and a few times in my life. So I think it was like 3 times in my life altogether that I was on antidepressants. Um, I really do try my hardest now not to go that route. I don't have anything, like I don't want people to be like, Donna said that, she doesn't take antidepressants, I shouldn't, and just stop and stuff like that. That's not smart at all. But I do see and believe that there is a way to support your body and to know, as you said, to know when it's kind of coming and to catch it and to give yourself grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the most important part.
Yeah. I think you have your functional medicine certification. So congratulations on getting that last fall. And one of the things that stood out to me when there was a person describing how functional medicine sits in with what's called conventional medicine, or traditional medicine, where traditional medicine, Western medicine, they want you to take a pill, whether it's for your blood pressure, for your diabetes, for your depression, instead of kind of treating the root cause, which is where functional medicine kind of tries to, why do you have those conditions? So let's treat those. And one of the things I heard in that, a great way to explain this was that functional medicine doesn't say you shouldn't have pharmaceuticals. It's like, if you have high blood pressure, you need to get on a blood pressure medication stat because you could die. But then let's figure out where we can tackle that so we can get you off the blood pressure medication by, lifestyle changes. So the way I would kind of translate that into depression would be, if you need to, because you're suicidal or because you just can't get out of bed in the morning, and for whatever reason, if you need to take a pharmaceutical to live your life, even if it's not a full and robust life, but you just need to live your life to get out of bed, I think taking a pharmaceutical for that purpose is good. And then, like you said, working with a therapist, working with someone on, okay, getting more exercise, which is going to help you with, your endorphins, the dopamine, and, trying to kickstart your normal processes that can help battle those chemicals that are going on in your brain, because it is a chemical, partly, I would say partly, I'm not a doctor, I don't know everything, but what I've heard, that this is sometimes chemically related, and to me, the body should be able to heal itself, but it doesn't mean it can heal itself from such a far distance. You really kind of need to get it closer. Because if you can't get out of bed, there's no way you can go outside for a walk for 30 minutes. So pop the pill, get your ass out of bed and go for a walk, because that's going to help you in the long run. And then you can some point get off the antidepressants if you don't want to be on them or if they don't help you anymore. But I don't know, I feel like that's kind of the whole point with functional medicine and how we would, how that would be attacked from that or the therapy that if I was in that position, I think that's the approach I would like to take, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the not all depression needs medication, in my opinion, because as you said, if you're able to function, if you're really able to function in some level and you're feeling like, okay, I can do this, I just need a little bit of coaching, a little bit of motivation, a little bit of getting it off my chest and things like that, often enough, and especially with the therapies nowadays, it's for some people it's enough, for some people it isn't. And the reason being is that, as you said, there is an imbalance. It could be a brain chemically imbalance, it could be just the body, like your body is inflamed. It's just your body yelling for help. It is literally what it is. It's the same as someone complaining of a neck inflammation or I don't know, whatever it may be, right? It's your body asking for help. And I think that when we understand it that way, and we don't say that your body or your brain is your enemy, which is very easy to think when you're feeling sick, whether it's a chronic illness, a mental chronic illness or a physical one. Very easy to say my body is my enemy, but when you understand that it's your body trying to communicate, when you understand that there is an imbalance and that you need help with, I would definitely agree, combining conventional and functional medicine, because I think, and that's kind of where it's lacking at the moment, is the conventional medicine doesn't necessarily understand or agree with or understand really functional medicine, whereas functional medicine is like, we can work together hand in hand like hippies, like let's just do this together. And functional and conventional medicine is like, no, you're the devil. So a lot, well, not everyone, but like a lot of that is happening, and I see that so much. But yes, a combination is usually the most helpful, and that's why it's there. There's the things that you can do in order to help yourself here, with what you're eating, what you're taking in terms of supplements, like the hours of sunlight that you're getting. When Megan said, do some exercise, it can literally just be a walk. Just a walk. No one is expecting you to be depressed in bed, with 7 covers on you, and then go like, I should go and exercise and go 3 hours to the gym. No, right? It's even probably going to make things worse. It's going to put more stress on your body than needed at the moment. But taking a walk outside in the sun, rain, whatever, just getting something, even standing, being in your living room, doing a little bit of yoga or breathing exercises. So there are so many things that you can help yourself with, that are not as overwhelming, right, as just kind of like going and lifting weights for 3 hours. But they're also not, and you can do them anywhere, right? You can do breathing exercises anywhere. You can do very simple things like you're feeling overwhelmed, to literally just look up, kind of like lift your head up and kind of look up with your eyes upwards, has been found centuries ago already to be really calming and helpful, especially when you're like having an anxiety attack or something like that, So there are different things, simple breathing exercises, simple, like just simple, really, really simple things that can help you in the moment and that can help you in the long run. And then again, with a combination of both. I think that's probably the best scenario for most people. If you're able to see the light without the medication, go for it. If you can't, that's okay. And it's okay. And it's okay to also be on that medication for life if that's where you need to be, if you can't find the root cause, if you can't find that balance for yourself. I personally just know I've been on those medications before, different ones. And I just know myself, and I know that I don't feel like myself when I'm on them. So for me, that's kind of not ideal. And yeah, I would say I'm an introvert extrovert, because like, some days I just want to not leave the bed, and some days I'm like, I won't stop talking, just like, no.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think when we were talking about this episode, I trying to encourage you to have some structure, because you're the free flower. And I was like, for this episode, I felt like we needed to have some structure. And one of the things, the story I told you, which I recently saw on TikTok, if you don't know about TikTok, well,
I don't.
you're under a rock, but it's short form video. And anyway, on TikTok, there is this TikToker, I guess you would call them. And he is a personal trainer who has experienced depression. So he actually talks a lot about and kind of debunks a lot of what people are saying on TikTok, to kind of bring a little bit of science to the background and to bring a little bit of perspective from a personal trainer's perspective, etc. And he talked about depression, about how sometimes in that case, in the circumstances he's talking about, is a personal trainer telling someone, well, just get to the gym, go to the gym, right? And that person who's depressed is like, I can't even get out of bed, right? Yeah. And then as a person who's only experienced depression, I would say in my adult life, and not very long, for the listeners out there who have never experienced depression, this analogy was something that was, I thought, really great to understand. Was that, imagine everyone starts their day with 10 spoons of energy, right? And if you don't have depression, or if you're not currently depressed, it might take you a spoon to get up in the morning, get around, take your shower, go to work, maybe another spoon to get through work, and maybe another spoon in the evening to like kind of do dinner and kind of wrap it up. But 3 to 4 spoons per day of energy that it actually takes you, because you have more energy at the end of the day, or even if you feel tired, but the point is that you've gotten through your day and you could still do something if you needed to. And the analogy is then a person with depression, it might take all 10 spoons of energy just to get out of bed in the morning, right?
Yes.
Just to take the covers off, put the feet on the ground and stand up might take all the energy that that person has, because either A, they don't have as much energy, or B, because it's just the exertion, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a great way for people who don't have it to kind of go, oh, yeah. So even as we are saying, just go for a walk, it's all like it's always easy to say go for a walk. Even when I'm laying on the couch and I just don't feel like doing anything. I wouldn't even say I'm depressed. I still don't have the motivation to go out and go for a walk. So
that's very true. That's true. And I think that's where it gets really, really tricky, is because, we've all heard of cabin fever, right? I mean, it's literally, you can go crazy just by being indoors. I go crazy because I hibernate at winter. I don't leave the house. But it's really important, because part of that, and this is why I said maybe going to the gym is not the best thing for you if you can hardly get out of bed, but just taking that walk outside will make a difference. And it's doable. I know that everyone can do it. I know that everyone who is suffering right now and is listening to me can decide to go out for a walk. I'm not saying every single day. I'm not saying like, after every single meal. I'm just saying, like, go get some fresh air, because that fresh air and that leaving that surrounding that is enclosing you while you're depressed, and then it just gets kind of worse because you're in that same space, you're in that same energy all the time. It's sometimes very helpful to just go get the mail. Start with going downstairs to get the mail. Start with going, maybe you didn't start the car for like over a week, and that's apparently concerning. I don't know why. So go start the car, drive around the block. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you want to break that pattern for yourself to see that it's doable, and for yourself to see like, I'm actually even feeling 1% better. That's good. That's something that you want to do.
But I agree, but I think that that's also where friends and family support needs to also step in to say,
yes,
okay,
let's
I know
go for
you're
a
not
walk.
feeling like it, but let's just put your shoes on and let's just go around the block. And I feel like for me, that's the type of support that helps me out the most, is that external accountability, that somebody's telling me, let's just go do this. Because as soon as I have somebody else, just the idea of it and that they're going to go with me, this is helpful. So maybe that, reaching back to the beginning of the episode when we talked about like what you should say to a person, or what you should do for your friend or your family that have depression, maybe that's the one thing you can do, is just say like, I'm here for you. Let's just go walk around the block. I mean, come on, that's probably the easiest thing that you could do. And you trick them into getting outside the house.
And hopefully talking a little bit. Yeah.
And hopefully talking a little bit. But even if they don't talk, it's like, fine. You're
That's
just
okay.
still helping them get out of the house.
Yeah. I think it's also important to know who it is that you're dealing with. I think, for me, for example, me, I love hosting, right? I love having people here. I'm like, don't bring anything, don't do anything, come over. If it's just for coffee or if it's for a whole meal, I'm happy. Now, when I'm depressed, obviously my family doesn't even get a cooked meal. So when I have a friend who says, I'm just going to drop by for a coffee, and all I need to do is make them coffee, it already somehow makes me feel better, because I'm a giver and I'm like a caregiver. And so for me, it just feels good to be me, if that makes sense. Right. So, I had friends over, like a friend and her kids over the other day. The kids were playing and having fun, and we were just playing card games and talking and sipping on coffee. And that was perfect for me, because I was like, and we hardly talked about depression. We did a little bit, but like, we talked a little bit about that, but then we were just being us. And it was such a nice and refreshing thing to do, because I think about depression all the time. I talk about it, quite often. Even if I don't talk about it, the dialogue is in my head all the time. Like I'm writing articles that are never going to see the light of day, but I'm writing like TED Talks in my head on a daily basis. And I had that way of kind of like, now I can talk, I can say things, I can focus on other things as well, which is also nice. So, the fact that someone is depressed doesn't necessarily mean that they want to talk about that specifically. Sometimes, we feel like if I just start talking about this now, I'll just burst out crying, and I don't feel like crying right now. Like I want to do something a little bit better with my time and with my time with you. And so you don't have to push, you just have to be there. Just be there, literally be there for the person. I think that's already such a huge help. And inviting them for a coffee, going out for coffee, coming over for coffee. Doesn't have to be coffee, by the way. It could be another drink. But just kind of being together, knowing that someone is there who cares about you makes a humongous difference. And, we have is that your mommy? Shane?
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Mom. She wrote something really important. I'm like, that last name sounds familiar. She wrote something really important. There's one who is always very near, hears every word, even when it's not spoken, knows your inner self better than you know yourself, and can replace and despair with rest, peace, and genuine joy. You just have to ask. Just so true. I mean, like this, it's just something that, like, you kind of know when something's off with a friend. Often you think they're mad at you. Most often they're not mad at you. And if they are, you kind of want to know, like if someone's mad at you, just kind of like confront them and be like, are you mad at me? Is everything okay? It's so simple to just ask that question. It's so simple to, have someone try to open up. And if they're like, no, like you talk to me, you can talk to me, or we can just sit there in silence, or we can cry together. Like just offer yourself as a human that is sitting on the other side of the table. And I think the person who is suffering and who is dealing with the depression can just know that there's someone there for them. Just that knowledge is already enough sometimes. It doesn't mean that you need to now find a therapist for them or be their therapist.
So with a little bit of time left, so I would say, let's say maybe 5 minutes on this last question and to kind of wrap up our discussion. Going out from ourselves to society. So how do you believe that society currently views and addresses depression as a mental health issue? Like, what do you have? Do you have some thoughts on that?
So many thoughts.
5 minutes, Donna.
I think it's demonized. Thank you. I think it's demonized, and I think it's not understood. And I think it's a huge problem. I think that a lot of us who are suffering from depression are, especially nowadays with social media, we only want to show the beautiful side. I saw a perfect picture that everyone can understand. There was a picture of a mirror, and you see an apple, right? And it's looking in the mirror with the perfect side, and the back is bitten off. And that's social media for you, right? Everyone wants to show the beauty. No one is showing the hurt side. No one's showing the bitten off side. And I think that's so dangerous. A lot of kids and adults are being, are being affected by that. And it's not okay. It's not okay not to show that vulnerability, because that's just, it's making us into robots. And it's making us feel like it's not okay when we're feeling anything but perfect or looking anything but perfect, because look at everyone else. But I can tell you that a lot of everyone else are suffering from something else, right? So there's too much for me to say about that. I think that it's our job as people who suffer from depression, or people who help people who suffer from depression, to be open and vulnerable. And I think that other people need to, or people who don't suffer from it and don't understand it, need to educate themselves a little bit on it. That's what I think.
Yeah, for me, I don't watch a lot of television, but I do, and I am a diehard RuPaul Drag Race fan.
I love her.
I just love RuPaul. And for those people who are like just turned off by the idea of men dressing up as women, like put that
First of all,
aside for a
what? They're
minute.
the best. I mean, really.
I know, but it's not for everybody. But what I wanted to say about it is that most of the people who are on Drag Race are gay or in the LGBT community, which of course depression and suicide rates are higher in that community.
For obvious
And
reasons, yeah.
and one of the things that's for me, because I don't have very many people in my life in that situation who are LGBT. I just don't. I don't know why. I have a few people that I know that I would be able to talk to about that, like to understand their experiences, but I have not experienced. That's not something I can say that is in my experiences in my life. But what I think is interesting, and okay, it's a reality show. Okay, there's producers encouraging the people to talk about a specific topic. Of course, I know this. You know this because it's got to be good TV. But what comes out of this, and it's typically when the people are getting ready for, putting on the drag makeup, and then they have conversations about their childhood, about coming out, about depression, about being suicidal. And I think it's probably one of, because I can't say because I don't know all TV, one of the few places on prime television where people are being truly authentic and talking about their experience. I mean, these are real tears. These are not fake tears. It may be a setup to say, hey, you guys, can you have a conversation about this? But when they start actually talking about it, you can see things just crumbling inside, and that they are just crying and expressing this to other people in the room who have gone through the same thing. And it's one of the reasons I love that show so much, is because for all of the makeup and for all of the deception, I'm using air quotes for the podcast, deception, because you're really transforming yourself to look like something completely different. But at the root of everything, RuPaul always says that drag shows you your true self. Like, you find yourself in drag, which is kind of his thing. But it's true. I mean, for these people, that is the way that they have been able to express and to deal with a lot of depression. And so I feel like society, in that one very small portion of society, is starting to kind of break that out to say, listen, this is how my experience was. But I think that it's still very niched into that LGBT community, where they're all very open about it now because most of them have experienced it. But if you're talking about the part of society who doesn't watch that, or they don't believe that people can be depressed, I mean, there's this whole swath of the rest of society who's like you said, like, just get over it, right? Don't. So
it's just kind of like, well, you get over it. Yeah, I mean, like, and that's the sad thing. What you said really resonated with me. I remember, and this should have signaled my depression back then, but like I remember when I was a teen, or like let's say a young adult, or like going into young adulthood, I always wanted to tattoo or write on my wall, a sentence from one song from Queen, where they say, "Inside my heart is breaking, my makeup may be flaking, but my smile still stays on." Right. So it was kind of like, for me, it was like, you always have to hide behind that smile. You always have to kind of like pretend, although you're crumbling from the inside, you have to pretend because the world has to see you smile. And I think that that's kind of like, that's where it is like, you want to smile. We all want to smile. We all want to feel happy. No one likes to be depressed. No one likes to be down. No one likes to like not be able to get out of bed. But some of us are suffering, and some of us need that understanding and that love and that support, so that we can finally get over it and really like get out of bed and do what we need to do, or do what we want to do. And just one last snippet that I really hope that those who do suffer from depression can take on is, don't beat yourself up. Like, even if you're sitting at home, like watching Netflix day in and day out for a month, it's probably what you need at that moment. I mean, like, yes, of course you want to try and get out and walk and whatever we talked about, and, like, make a better meal for yourself, because your body's going to thank you, and your brain is going to thank you, and your soul's going to thank you. But at the end of the day, like, we just need to go over that, like, go over that hurdle. We need to kind of like be sad and but what we need to also do is confront our emotions and our feelings head on. So instead of hiding behind like the food, if it's emotional eating, or the TV, if it's like just binge watching things, to just avoid those thoughts and those feelings, we just really need to sometimes go like, what the hell is going on? Why am I feeling this way? What is happening? That confrontation is sometimes more helpful than you'll ever know. Like, it's just something that will really bring you towards healing in that moment, or in that kind of like time, a little bit faster, so that you can actually come outside, come out the other end with that smile, and hopefully it's a genuine one this time.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing and awesome.
We kept to the hour.
I know we could go for another hour, I'm assuming, but otherwise we're just tangenting too much. But I think I think we'll wrap it up here for today. And I just want to say thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us, and to be very honest and open. And I'm assuming, speaking for you, that if anybody has any questions or wants to talk with you, that you are available for that. Is that safe to say?
100%. Anyone who needs to talk, anyone who's feeling lost or drowning in their own, mess of a life, I get it, and I'm happy to talk. And you're not alone, and that's really important to know.
Yeah. So, like we said at the top of the hour, we hope to see you at our next live. And if you have any topics that you want us to cover, feel free to drop them to us in any of the spots that you know where we are. I'm not going to list them all, but we would love to know what you guys want us to talk about. And, maybe we could bring a guest on. We could do a little bit more interaction here. And we love to see you guys in the chat if you have some questions. Having you guys engage with us live is amazing and awesome. And yeah, I think that's all I want to say. I'm not going to go on and on about that. But thanks, Donna, again. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, you're still listening. Great. Okay, now I can tell you about my 12-week goal setting session. So in this 1-hour session, I'm going to help guide you through a powerful process inspired by the best-selling book, The 12-Week Year. I know. Everybody at this time of the year starts to think about year-long goals. And I would argue that year-long goals are really hard to contextualize. What is going to be happening in a year from now? You have no idea. But 12 weeks gives you a little bit better understanding, because you kind of already have your calendar booked out for the next 12 weeks, kind of know what's going to be going on. So if you can focus your goals on the next 12 weeks, you can make some really big actionable steps towards your long-term vision. So in this 1-hour session, we do talk about long-term vision. We talk about where you want to be. We talk about what your 5-year, 10-year, 3-year, all those goals are. But that's only a brief part. We know we see the long distance view, but let's break that down. And then we get into the 1 to 3 strategic 12-week goals that are going to get you to those long-term vision. Then we're going to put that into a really cool action plan with like checklists and timing and all that jazz, to make sure that you are clear and that you have accountability to get those goals done. And then that's not it. Then we are going to tackle your roadblocks, because you have roadblocks. So we're going to tackle those roadblocks. We're going to create a plan to overcome them. So when you start to self-sabotage, what you can do to get around those roadblocks. Okay, so if this is interesting for you, it is only 1 hour of your time, and it's only 45 Swiss francs. I host this gig over on Fiverr, but I'm also going to put a link down in the show notes. So if you're interested, hit me up.